In a case like that, it becomes extremely difficult for you to suspect anybody.
Yes, terrorist is one who has completely merged with the surroundings.
Okay.
And he is indistinguishable from every one of us around here. And he chooses the moment when he wants to display his true face of the terror.
Okay.
And that makes it difficult.
Is it that we are only bothered about the symptoms and not about the cause? Is it that we are only bothered about the result and not the source? Because in most of the cases, we have not even bothered to know from where it is emanating. What is the source of it? Where is the origin of it? Or rather, where are the roots of it?
Our reactions are knee-jerk. That I will have to understand.
Okay.
Accept that. Our reactions need to be more deeper. We have to do the root cause analysis and go out and remove the root cause of the problem, and then only you will be able to succeed.
It is not that we have not had such kind of, eminent people to handle all this. Is it only because, the police department has been working in a very hand-tied situation for a very long time, that though you have the skills, though you have the expertise, though you have the kind of people who can find solutions to these problems, you have not been able to do much about it?
Thing is, the events overtake, and we are a very big country. We have very many problems, and all the problems are crying for attention all at the same time. And the resources, which is one resource which we never can get back, that is the time. That time resource is very, very limited, and because of that, we have to do something where the time can be expanded so that all our actions can be put together.
You could be very confident, but an ordinary policeman on the street is not confident about how to handle an attack of the magnitude that happened in Mumbai.
The problem here is we have to go in for complete re-engineering of the way we deliver our services.
We have to go, but we are in a
in
a situation
some
like that.
Some of them already started,
Okay.
and they are going through, and more capacity building is required.
Okay.
And that takes time.
Okay.
That takes time. And if we had watched one of the TV programs yesterday, some of the policemen were saying, even though we are not fired earlier in our lifetime, except for one bout of firing which we did in the range practice, they said this particular real life situation taught us many more lessons.
Okay. Yeah. But today, most people only know that, you're not only under-equipped, but, you do not have the kind of manpower that you need. And these are the demands that you've been making for a very long time. See, tomorrow, if something like that happens, God forbid, but, the first security that you would be giving would be for the politicians or to VIPs. What will be doing for ordinary people? Because in any emergency situation, that you're more bothered about the VIPs and not the ordinary people at all. It's even in Mumbai for the first time, because important people died in this attack, or people in 5-star hotels died. People have really taken note of it. Such attacks have happened so many times. Hundreds of people have died in, train bombings, to market bombings, to even in Kashmir. So do you say that, even in Karnataka, unless something as drastic or as big as what happened in Mumbai happened, that we would really not react to it the way we would be expected to?
I don't fully agree with you there. We are a third world country, and we have resources which are, you can say, third world resources. But the question is in the attitude and in the mind. With the third world resources also, we can sometimes do a first class job. For example, even in the Bombay attack, you would have found when the vehicle-borne terrorists were going around firing helter-skelter, and they were causing deaths, including deaths of the police officers, there was some group of police officers who immediately barricaded the road and put obstacles in the way of their this thing, started checking them, asked them to come out for checking, and with the old weapons which are available with them, they were able to kill one terrorist and capture one alive.
Okay.
So these are things in the mind.
But that's not an achievement at all, right?
No, it is,
because we certainly do have the resources to equip our police, right? We do have the money to send equipments and what do you say, satellite to the moon, but we do not have the money to buy, state-of-the-art equipment for our police, or better guns, or better bulletproof vests and all that.
No, state-of-the-art equipment is definitely a very big help in fighting such threats.
Yeah.
At the same time, what I am trying to highlight here is the attitude of the mind,
Okay.
and what we do with the resources which we have, how best we use our resources.
Okay.
We do have to concentrate on that also.
Okay. But today, I mean, the most important question is about training more than equipments.
Yes.
Training the policemen mentally as well as physically, because you know the people who can fire are about 40 to 45 years and above aged personnel that you have, whereas the terrorists that you've seen could be in the age group of 18 to 22 years. So do you think it's anywhere a match?
It is like this. We can't expect everybody to be very young in fighting this
Okay,
thing.
but why can't you
And
at least have a
the question
contingent
is,
of very young
we
and
should have
energetic?
contingents, we should have, and we are putting those contingents into place. Question is, when an incident takes place, how we respond to the situation, how quickly we are able to respond to the situation, what is our methodology by which we respond to such situations. So, for example, if incident took place here, one of our officers, he was just going back from a briefing with the minister, or then he rushed to the spot. So he fought with whatever resources are available with him, and that did have an impact. Though ultimately we lost the officer, it is the fact that we were able to stall the group from doing their objective. Like, for example, the stated objective was that 5,000 people should be killed.
Okay.
They did not reach that objective. At least that much we should say, that with the resources which we had, we were able to fight.
But
that is where our determination should come to change our attitude and do better.
Okay, but even when we say that the terrorist chooses his target, wouldn't there be any kind of even a wild possibility that we can study the pattern of events and at least pinpoint as to, if not accurately, at least around the target as to this could be the next target? Because you know, I mean, some police officers say that the best thing to ensure the security of a VIP would be to perhaps sound the police off by saying that there is a suicide bomber who has come to bomb the place of an important venue. At least then the whole police will get up and, you know, I will beef up the security and at least nothing will go wrong, kind of thing. You may not be aware of it, but that's what people try to do, because, you know, there's no other way to do anything.
No, I think this is not a laughing matter. This is not a time for rumor mongering. It is a time for introspection. It's a time for learning from past mistakes. It is time for preparedness.
That's what you told even after that the serial blasts in Bangalore, right?
Yes.
But you know very well, even after so many months, you've not been able to get much things happening.
No, some of the things we have got
things
happening.
because you know a DG doesn't stay for more than a year in Karnataka. Most of you come with so many ideas, so many aspirations, so many dreams, but even before you move your paper, you retire and you go. You know that this is the most important thing. Even the governments don't stay. There's no continuity at all.
That is why I am trying to build up a institutional memory. I am trying to build up a perspective plan, a vision document, by which, you know, all of us are very clear in our mind as to what is to be done. At any point of time, you can stand and measure as to where we are, and from there where we have to go.
Okay.
We have to be doing it constantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But quite often when people talk about the police department being quite understaffed, why do we really need so many people? We need to be looking at smart policing, right?
Yes, definitely.
Because, you know, instead of having more people who may not know what to do and who just end up as a crowd in a certain place, you can use a lot of equipments, better training, better intelligence.
Exactly.
And a combination of these three things can do much more work than anything else can ever achieve, right?
Yes, I agree there.
So don't you think that that should be the primary objective today, to see that how we are going to better the things that we have instead of just augmenting?
I will tell you what we have done. From 1st of December this year, we have launched a police crime prevention drive. In this, three elements are there. The first element is the conventional crime prevention techniques, where we go for beat patrolling, collection of intelligence, pursue the out of view criminals, take the cases which are investigated properly and take it to court and get them the imprisonment which they deserve, etc. So this is the conventional policing things. So these are all well laid out in the manuals, etc. That means it's a question of going back to the basics, trying to do what we are expected to do, what we should be doing. That is one component of it. The second component of it is you would like to know immediately as to whether we are having in this information age we are using any technological tools to improve our performance. So that is one other aspect of it, that we use the technological tools which are available in the market and use it well, so that our conventional policing becomes better. The third thing which we will ask immediately then is how far we have succeeded in our endeavor. Operational results and public satisfaction are very key elements in this. So there is a Malcolm Baldrige model where 7 identified parameters for measuring quality of service, especially in a public service delivery, are there. So we have imbibed these 7 parameters into our crime prevention drive to measure how the output of a constable, head constable, sub-inspector, inspector, right up to the DG, how his performance can be measured at any given point of time. And it is not only question of measuring the performance of an individual, it is also measuring the performance of an institution. Like for example, police station, the circle inspectors, circle station, or the subdivision, or the district as a whole, how it is performing. So both these individual performance measurement matrix as well as the institutional performance matrix have been put together. So we have evolved a methodology by which conventional policing methods combined with the technological tools, combined with the modern measurement techniques, all three put together, we have launched this drive. So first of this month, this has started. The most important challenge here before me is to how to get all my people involved in this process. So that is what we are concentrating on in this month of December, where we have given promise of very huge rewards to all the people performing. And we will like to involve the public also in this, so that there is a third party transparent way of measurement. And then we tell people that you have performed well, you have not performed well. These are the areas where you have to improve, these are the areas where you need to concentrate on.
You're talking about changing attitudes.
Yes.
You're talking about improvements.
Yes.
But the most important thing is changing the mindset.
Yes.
Because most of your policemen are old police in a new world.
I don't think so. Like for example, last year itself we have recruited 9,000 policemen. This year we have recruited another 4,000 policemen. They are all doing the training now.
But
and some
would
of
they
them
be coming with the same kind of mindset that the seniors have
Let me tell you
had?
that for the
Because,
last
the kind of people who train them aren't any new because
No.
No, I mean it's not a laughing matter once again, but still.
I'll have to tell you what we have done to get these mistakes corrected. Last 4 or 5 years, we have put in a recruitment process which is very, very transparent, very fair, and it has got even the ISO certification, and it is considered to be the best in the country today. Other police states police forces are asking us to help them in putting a system in that place. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we have been recruiting the best people who are available in the state for joining the police. That is how we have been able to get even at the constable level and the sub-inspector level, where the two direct recruitment process which are handled by us, we have been able to get the best people recruited. Then the question of training comes. Here we are using the computer-based training modules, etc. So even though there are people, a lot of trainers are not available for the number of persons we are recruiting, we are making use of modern methodology of training, computer-based training, simulation exercises, this video conferencing, all these things are also being used. So there are modules where people can learn at their own pace. So these things are also introduced. So hopefully we are in for a very, very big change in the policing setup in Karnataka.
But there are many obstacles that you face, hurdles, and also a lot of things that work against you. Sometimes, to begin with, the mindset of the people who have already been ensconced in the processes, people who have been holding vested interests and who are like, who do not want to change or budge, and people who just are not ready for any change at all. And then, there are so many other processes also, or, some kinds of the malaises that you have, like bribery, to lethargy, to political influences, then the politicians themselves, and then also you have human rights groups and institutions that stop you from doing a lot of your jobs. I mean, whether these are necessary or necessary evils or obstacles or what are different matters. But the most important thing is that you are just unable to do a lot of things because so many things just don't allow you to do things. Because today people say, why didn't you check? But when you start checking, people question you. or people find it extremely uncomfortable. They bring influence to even prevent you from, frisking them. Or even from asking them questions. You cannot get harsh with anybody. They come to you with an AK-47, but you need to talk to them with a rose in your hand, though you're police people. Do you think that these are real problems that you're facing?
No, as far as systems are concerned, we need a total reform. There has to be total police reforms in the state. So there has been a lot of progress in that regard also. The 1861 Police Act, which came to us in 1964 in a very different name, Karnataka Police Act, but essential ingredients are one and the same. So that we are revising, and the draft is ready, and we are expecting the legislature to give us the legislative mandate to reform our Police Act. That is the legal structure. Then, as I told you, the management structure is also being changed in very many ways, including introducing the metrics of measurement. Metrics and measurement parameters to find out how well we have done our job. Then the capacity building, so that the human resource angles are taken care of. So then the police community relationship, unless the community is going to be participating in our endeavor, we are not going to be going anywhere. So the earlier concept was that we should put the fear of God in everybody and then control the situation. Now it cannot be like that anymore. We are in a democracy, and the ruler is the.
But you're dealing with terrorists.
Yeah, even in terrorism, when the terrorists are there, if we get the information from the grassroots level, we should be able to. Like, for example, supposing a terrorist walks in, first of all, and he comes with a false identity papers. So how did he get the false identity papers? Right from that time, if we can get the information, supposing he is coming and renting a place here to stay and comes to recce the place, we get to know about the unwanted intrusions taking place. So the systems and procedures have to be put into place by which we get all these exception reporting.
But you always spoke about the rule of engagement also.
Yes.
But with the terrorist, or with a disruptive agent, it would be extremely difficult for you to apply that, right? Because rule of law would be most applicable there, because most senior officers talk about democracy, human rights and things like that, but a man on the street, or the man who needs to execute a certain job, a commando or a constable, they may not be able to understand all your philosophies.
Here we have
and even the general public want a policeman to act like a policeman, because we still have a certain concept about a policeman.
That's true. There are people who would like to, they don't want to subject themselves to restriction on the rights. They want only their freedoms to be given the impetus that is required. So if we stop and check, you will say, who are you to say? Or they will say, I know so and so in the hierarchy, so I will get over you, get across you. So these are things which we have to take care of. And for that, we need to bring in more transparency, for example. So supposing we have the documentation of the processes going on. So at the traffic corner, supposing somebody is breaking the yellow, crossing the yellow light, yellow line, he is committing an offence, and it is recorded. Then if I issue a challenge to him, he cannot come back and tell me that I know so and so, so I will get away with breaking it with impunity. So we have to enforce the law with the strictness that is required. Then we also have to educate people that yes, they have to follow the rule of law for the good of everybody concerned.
But is it possible?
It is possible.
No. Is it possible that the terrorists really believe that the Indian policing system, particularly, is not something that they fear about?
No, if the terrorist is from within, definitely it is for us to weed him out. And single him out and then take action. If the terrorist from coming across the borders and is entering into our territory, we should be able to come to know that a breach has taken place within the shortest possible time and take corrective action.
For instance, if
for example, we need the national ID card system. If the national ID card system is available, you cannot be going around. Our problem is that India is such a multi-ethnic society that anybody can come and merge in the society very well, even though he is an alien. So aliens have to be spotted out very quickly. So the national ID card system is a solution to that. So we have to have that.
But about the police department particularly, that's the closest that a person can, a man from the public can experience the government in. Correct, because in the police, a person of the general public actually experiences the government, and that is the reason why politicians tend to control the police department. And that is where and through which a politician also tries to exercise his power. So do you think that though there have been cries and calls for separating the police from the political influence or the direct power, it may not be possible at all, because the politicians would never let go of that power.
No, we are taking a very determined steps towards that.
Okay.
There are certain things which even the Supreme Court and various commissions of which have gone into police reforms have suggested.
Okay.
We are thinking of a security commission as to act as the buffer between the government and the police. We are thinking of a police establishment board which will control all the disciplinary matters within the department, like posting transfers, disciplinary actions, etc. We are thinking of a police accountability commission where police people not following the manuals and procedures will be held accountable and they have to answer for their lapses. We are thinking of a anytime, anywhere policing where police help will be delivered at the doorstep of the caller within minutes of raising the call for help. And we are looking for a documentation process where all these things will be recorded, so that if there is going to be any audit required, that can also be done by a third party.
So to make this happen, you certainly need the support of the political will.
Yes.
Okay, but would it actually come to you?
You'll be surprised to know, just about a few days back, nearly 7-8 members of the cabinet headed by the Chief Minister and Home Minister, with about 40-45 selected IPS officers in the state, we all sat together from morning till evening, trying to find out what are all the things that are required to make police more efficient and more people friendly and more duty conscious. We have listed out many of these things.
Couldn't that be an eyewash?
It is not an eyewash.
In a situation like this, the government is expected to at least do such
It is
drama.
not an eyewash. This happened.
And people like you are sincere, certainly, because you really want to do things. But what about a government that transferred thousands and thousands of policemen?
Now, I will say this much. All the discussions that took place and all the action points that emanated from those discussions, they are up on the net. So in our website, in our blog, in my blog, we have written about that, and the list of things to be done is already available there. And you can keep a scorecard and find out 1 month from now how much of that has been acted upon. Then you can tell me whether we have acted according to our discussions or not. But let the actions speak for themselves.
But are there any definite clues that you have about any kind of plans for attacks in Karnataka or in Bangalore?
No, general threat perception is definitely there.
What kind of threat?
Like, for example, Delhi is the political capital. It has already been subject of attack so many times. Bombay is the commercial capital, so that has also been attacked repeatedly. And Bangalore is the IT capital of the country, so it has also been subject to some
but you've been very lucky so far.
It is not the question of luck. We have done something to get it, we have faced the situation. Like, for example, when in Rajiv Gandhi's assassins got, they found shelter here. We located them and we, we encountered them.
But looking at the attacks in Mumbai, there is something very strange about it. The attackers were not the Fidaiin kind, not the suicide bombers, or not the ones who would really go and not think of anything and just blow themselves up and kill as many people as possible in the process. But here it looked like they had plans to escape after creating mayhem. So do you think that it's a new kind of new breed of terrorism?
I do not agree that they were not Fidaiin type. They were determined in their objective. They were prepared to lay down their life also. That they had a backup plan is true of even the suicide killers from the Sri Lanka LTT who came to kill the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. So, but they also had a backup plan of escaping if it is possible.
They do not come determined to die.
No.
But could there be a type who kill themselves no matter what?
They come.
Because they also declare, according to what I've seen or heard, in the name of God, that they are sacrificing their life for the sake of what they believe. So why would they even think of escaping if they made a pledge?
No, they come with a plan. They come to achieve their objective, and as most of the plans, an escape route is also kept. If it is possible, they would like to achieve their 100% success, do their job and get away. There are very, very few people who would like to commit harakiri, that they are 100% sure that they are going to be killed in the process. But a backup plan will, I am sure they will always think of that.
Okay, so many people have into the mind of terrorists.
Yes.
Sorry, rather minds of different
Okay.
terrorists, all kinds of terrorists and types of them. Do you think that not much work has been done in that direction? Because we have psychiatrists, psychologists, you do brain mapping to narco analysis to everything. I'm sure by now you have enough material to at least see some kind of a pattern in it, or at least to predict a few things at least, if not very accurately.
See, predictive thing can be done in an automatic sequence, that this is the input and this is going to be the output.
Okay.
Human mind is something which is totally different. What is going to be the input? The same input is given in 3 different conditions, environmental condition, the output will be totally different.
Okay.
So that being the case, I do not think, you don't get identical twins also. So I don't think every reaction of a terrorist is going to be the same in similar circumstances.
Okay.
So that is where the problem lies, that if we have to face the question of terrorism, we have to keep thinking all the time, keep outthinking the terrorist all the time. Then only we will be able to achieve success.
So are you confident about the safety and security of Kannadigas or people in Karnataka, particularly in the city of Bangalore?
As head of the police force, with
You
all
certainly have to feel.
I give the assurance that whatever resources are available with us, we will work beyond our strength and ability to give the sense of security and satisfaction to the public. I am very confident of that, and I will do my duty, and we will do our duty.
On that note, Mr. Srikumar, I must thank you for having come to this show.